Okay, welcome to Swell Academy. Today we're looking at finding an endpoint of like a line on a graph instead of what we usually do is find a midpoint. So actually you're going to be given the midpoint and they're asked, well, what is the other midpoint or what is the other endpoint? But first I want to just take a look at what if we were just to find a midpoint? Because I think that's important to see. Well, I have to know how to find a midpoint before I could kind of work back and look for. Now what we're doing is adding our x's and adding our y's. We're dividing by 2 because there's 2 points, so we're taking an average of those 2 points, and we get negative 1.5 and 2. Now that is your midpoint, right here. That's what we found here. Now what you'll do in the problems that we're going to look at next is we're kind of going to look at this. We're going to fill these steps out and we're going to try to work ourselves backwards and then eventually kind of come to this understanding and create some shortcuts of how we could quickly find an answer. So okay, so now we're going to look at they're going to give us an endpoint. They're asking for another endpoint, but they do give us a midpoint. Now, we saw from the previous problem that in order to get 2 and 4, they did 4 divided by 2 and 8 divided by 2. So, we know that when you add your x's and you add your y's, you end up dividing by 2 and getting this final midpoint here. So, we're going to go backwards, and we know that since we divided by 2, we're kind of multiplying by 2 here. Now, before that, we want 3 plus a number over 2 to get 4 over 2, and we want also 3 plus a number over 2 to get 8, right? Because we're using this 1 point here and this 1 point here as our y's, because we have x plus x over 2 and y plus y over 2. So we're using one of our x's here and here, and then we're asking about this and this. So 3 plus what? 3 plus 1 over 2 will give you 4 over 2. So one of my x values here must have been 1. And then 3 plus 5 is going to give me 8. So one of my values for y was 5. So we have 1 and 5. I know you heard that bell ring. Class is still in session for us. And this was my endpoint. Now, one thing you could do is quickly plot that 1 and 5 and that 3 and 3. 1, 3. And look, is 2 and 4, does that look like a potential midpoint? And it does. So I checked my work and it makes sense. If this is my 1 and 5 and this is my 3 and 3, then it does make sense. This 2 and 4, the midpoint they gave me here. So basically what we did was we set this problem up like 3 plus what number over 2 is equal to 2, right? That's what we did. So just let's start developing a little bit of shortcut here other than moving, backwards the entire time. So we'll look at another set of points. Okay, so they gave me 10 and 6. I don't know my other coordinate. And here's 8 and 4. Now remember, you may not kind of understand what I just kind of explained to you about setting up that equation, but you know that x plus x over 2 should equal to 8. And you already have one of your x's, so 10 plus x over 2 should be equal to 8. Now I can multiply both sides by 2. 10 plus x is equal to 16. Subtract 10. Subtract 10. X is equal to 6. So I know this number here is equal to 6. And then same thing here. Y plus y over 2. So y plus y over 2 is equal to 4. So if I multiply by 2 to each side, y plus y is equal to 8. Oh, I'm sorry. We should have used, what are we using? 6 here? 6. So 6 plus, so minus 6, y is equal to 2. Here is my endpoint that I was using. And it makes sense because if we do 16 divided by 2, that'll give us 8. If we did 8 divided by 2, that'll give us 4. So how did I do? I did 10 plus 6 over 2, and I did 6 plus 2 over 2. So working backwards, we could see, okay, this is where we got our 2 and our 6. So now we're just kind of setting up algebraic equations. So now I could just look and say, okay, one endpoint is 9, 15, and they want the other one. So I could say 9 plus x over 2 is equal to negative 4.5, because that's my x midpoint. And then you see I'm trying to trim the steps here and just kind of move you guys along. It's equal to 17.5. So we're solving for a y. This is our midpoint formula. This is our missing endpoint. And we're using, sorry for the interruption here. We're using our formulas for midpoint to find our endpoint. So here we just multiply both sides by 2. 9 plus x is equal to, what is this, negative 9. Subtract 9, x equal to negative 18. Hope my math was right on that one. Moving quick here, times 2 times 2. 17 times 2 is 34. Half times 2 is 1, so we should have 15 plus y is equal to 35. Subtract 15 from both sides. Y is equal to 20. So here we're getting quicker. We're just using our formulas. We've kind of seen how it works. We're using our formulas, and we're quickly getting to some endpoints here. And now I could just take an endpoint. I know that I have a midpoint of 11, so we'll use negative 4.3. Here you have some, and negative 9.8. I know I have negative 4.3 plus an x we do not know, and that's equal to a midpoint of negative 11. So negative 4.3 plus x multiply both sides by 2 gives me negative 22. So make sure if you're using a calculator, you do negative 22 plus. This is where the signs start to come into play. You have to be careful. You have to pay attention. Negative 22 plus 4.3. And then we get x is equal to negative 17.7. Check your signs. Signs are big here. And then we know we want to do, take a given endpoint plus the endpoint we're looking for, so the missing y, divided by 2 is going to give us our midpoint of a negative 11.45 times both sides by 2, negative 11.45 times 2, negative 22.9. Then you want to add the 9.8 to both sides. But remember, you have different signs here, so you're not adding these numbers. It's basically you're subtracting a positive from a negative. So you owe someone $22.90, and you paid them back $9.80. How much do you still owe them? So I'll do negative 22.9 on my calculator plus 9.8, and I have y is equal to 13.1. Hope my math was right. Hope my signs are right, but this should help. Remember, just kind of focus on how we develop this equation and just kind of take yourself through the steps, and it should be helpful. So remember, work hard, and the more you fail, the more you succeed.